What's good, everybody? I actually used to have a channel that I forgot the login information to, so I just remade a new channel, and I have not had the urge to really make a video until really now. And my main purpose of making this video is because I'm so tired of seeing people try and say that Tartaria is like a conspiracy. A lot of other things I would definitely agree with, like they're debatable and would need some good conversation and details and evidence to prove. This is something that has so much evidence. I can't understand how are there people that think that this was never the deal. So let me just break off with one of the basis and easiest things to find. There are maps, tons and tons of maps that explain Tartaria. They don't explain Tartaria, but they do show Tartaria was not to be messed with. Okay, they were everywhere. They were taking like Grand Tartary. Like, what is that? What is that? Well, what the heck? It's up here, which looks like. Forgive me for my if I'm wrong in my geography, but it looks like the Russia area, Asia. So, what was the deal with these guys? What's the deal? Why were we not taught about Tartaria? What is that? Well, first off, yeah, right here in this image, these are the Mongols, the Mongolians, but they were more than one type of people, which is why they were able to take over this nation. So I'm gonna give you what I have. I'm gonna leave you with that because I think with what I have found on this, it's undeniable. It's undeniable. And if you want anyone to just basically just stop arguing about the fact that this is real, I think that this is just the evidence you need. So first, there are maps, and I can't even just pick a map for you because there are so many different kinds of maps that it just, I'm sure, are written and drawn by pretty prestigious and known people back in the day. But we'll just move past that because I'm sure there's tons of people who have talked about that. So I'm going to skip through some of my tabs here because they're a little spread out. Now, right here, we have John Speed. I'm going to tell you a little bit about John Speed. Yes, this is Wikipedia. If you want to find your own resources to verify any of this, go ahead. But John Speed apparently was like around 1500s, we'll just say, to 1600s, I don't know, was an English cartographer, chronologer, I don't even know what that is, and historian of Cheshire origins. The son of a citizen and a merchant tailor in London, he rose from his family occupation to accept the task of drawing together and revising the histories, topographies, and maps of the kingdoms of the Great Britain as an exposition of the union of their monarchies in the person of King James fourth and fifth. Yes, I don't know the Roman numerals on top of that, but the point is, this guy was a fairly well-known man. He drew upon and improved the Shire maps of all these places, the Saxon, John Norden, and others being the incorporate of the 100 boundaries into them. He was a surveyor and the originator of many of the town or city plans and set with them. His work helped to define early modern concepts of British national identity. His biblical genealogies were also formally associated with the first edition of the King James Bible. He is among the most famous of English map makers. Okay. This guy, if he says something, it's gotta mean something. Okay, so there you go. That's John Speed. Now let's just go look and see what John Speed has to say about Tartaria. So the fact that John Speed has even spoke about Tartaria is enough. Okay, like he wrote this. This is his. He wrote it, and it's John Speed. Okay, he is like the modern day of somebody that's like a hugely respected person. Okay, so a new map of Tartary, augmented by John Speed, okay, in 1552. I don't know if they have the exact 1626. There you go, is the publication date. Now this, I will link these. This is a very, very crazy document. It has some wild claims. Wild claims. But let's remember who is saying this stuff. It's John Speed. It's John Speed. He's freaking a big dude. He had stuff to do with the King James Bible and all that stuff. He's one of the most famous. Okay. So this guy, okay, first off, I don't know if you guys want me to, I don't know if I should read this whole thing, but I guess I'll read this one page because it is wild. And I'll link it for this other side. This site does not speak as much wild stuff. It just goes on to talk about like their like relations with people. I don't know, from that city once the king's blah, blah, it doesn't get that good. So again, this is like old English, so it's not that I might mess up. Cythriarium gens. So the F's are actually S's. Okay, so it's pretty difficult to read. So let me just go to the ones I can read. Okay, betwixt the Egyptian and inhabitant of the country. Okay, yet they were not the Scythians first, which possessed it. Something. See, these F's are S's actually. Possessed it. At least it was the first name by which they were known. So they were first known by Scyth. They were the Scythians. Okay. For before the entrance of the Scyths, they supposed son of Hercules. That's cool. Okay, that is really cool. Okay, so these guys come from Hercules. Honestly, Hercules was my favorite story about like all those old heroes. Hercules has immense strength, and you'll come to know that. So did these guys. So let's just continue. We find here a people which derive their pedigree from Magog. Now, I'm not too insanely well versed on Magog, but I know I think he's the calf god, but go ahead and do that on your own. The son of, I think it's Japhet. Again, these letters are really old English. I don't know if it's supposed to be an I or if it's a J. And we're called the Magogians, or however you pronounce that, in remembrance of their antique founder. To this purpose, I don't know what that word is, and other learned interpret Terramagog of the Izek and Revel, and so in fun dry places elsewhere in divine scripture. Take it for other land than that which was after profane writers called Scythia. So, explaining a little bit of that, have filled their bounds from the beginning for what any one kingdom earth has. All states have had their course to rife and fall, to be imperator and large, please the Most High. Okay, so let's just go a little bit to so right here, of the Magogians, which are the Tartarians, which were the first called the Scythians, we not have much story, yet they have left their name behind with them, which is now corrupted into Mongol, as most imagine. While the Scyth bear rule, they infected their neighbors without mercy or etiquette, and practiced their rapines as fair almost as they could find a subject to work on, as fast almost as they could find a subject to work, something like that, in so much that they gave name to all the rude and inhumane nations, both of Asia and Europe, north of Danubius, which for their cruelty were much feared, and for their brutish customs grown odious to the more civil parts of the world. So these people were so brutal, so bad, that the rest of the world began to know of their terrifying actions. So the Tolite Barbarium mares was meant of these by the poet. So let's just continue going to things that I could actually read better. Their father Slash used his skull. Oh my god. Okay, so here's something they're saying that's pretty weird. For who could be more barbarous than the Ephidons, which lived here by the Polis Motis and Herod in his fourth book? I actually don't know if they're referring to different things and they're trying to compare them to Tartaria, so I'm just going to not go with that. Okay, let me go to... Okay, so this is explaining how they looked. It were too much to recite here. The other feathered nations, which overspread the earth, for she was at most style her the officious and sent forth swarms of her brood, which soon fastened themselves wherever they set footing. So again, I apologize. This is Old English and I'm struggling, but they came from somewhere and decided to just start going across. They were strong of body, bold and heady, beyond the rule of valor, distinguished not right from wrong in their quarrels, but reckoned justly their own, whatever they could class by force of arms, and this that they all practice almost without difference of sex, unless in this that their women were most warlike. Witness the incapable story of who cut off 2,000. The story of this name, again, I can't read because it's got parentheses or italics, who cut off the Perulian Cyrus and 200,000 more of his soldiers at one encounter and cast his head into a cauldron of blood. Blah blah. I don't know. It sounded like this guy just had an insane feat. Okay, so and remember who was saying this stuff, right? So we're gonna get to the parts that were just so crazy for me. Okay, so right here, also, this is a great keynote. These last have been supposed to be the remnant of those 10 tribes which were led captive by Salamanzar. How likely the reasons I will not dispute, but surely, if so, they must have retained some knowledge of the true God, at least some percepts of civility from their forefathers, though never so long since. So, take from that what you will, okay? The true God, I don't know what they're talking about. Their stature is different. The most part have large shoulders, a broad face with a crooked nose, deformed countenance, swarthy colors, hollow eyes, hairy and untrimmed beard, and a head close shaved. Their speech is boisterous and clamorous. Their noise in singing like the yell of wolves, and endurance of hunger, thirst, heat, cold, and watching equals them in strength of body to the most able feet, for it exceeds the common power of man. Their lust is without law, for they accept no kindred but their own mothers, daughters, and sisters, no species, for they mix with beasts, no sex, for they are initiate sodomites, and yet take liberty for as many wives as they can maintain. All right, and then sometimes they suck blood from the living to appease their hunger and thirst, if in a journey they be distressed for want of food. Now, holy hell. What the hell? So there's two huge things in here that make me just be like, what? They mixed with beasts. Like what? Mythological creature kind of sounding stuff. And they drank blood from people. Okay, so vampires and mythological creatures could literally just all be smacked in right here. This is written by John Speed. What wild claims that is, right? What wild claims. Now, another thing that he talks about is their hordes. Cities they have but few, nor houses other than movable tents made of beast skins, which they pitch up by great multitudes in the form of a town, and those are called hordes. When the grass is once eaten bare, and the ground yields not meat for their cattle, they trudge with bag and baggage to another quarter. So it gets really blurry here. I can't really read it all. These guys traveled in massive hordes. They didn't set up towns. They literally just had tents. It says somewhere in here that they follow a star. But they basically would just rampage through the world together and take over whatever they went over. like just moving, and they're like, oh, this is mine, I'm gonna run over it, and there's thousands of them. Imagine you're in a town and you're just living your day-to-day life, and then boom, next thing you know, there's like thousands of these huge, really terrifying, barbaric, giant guys, and they're not nice, barbarically taking over your town, and you see some gruesome stuff. After doing this a couple times, word got out. It got out, and this was happening around Asia. This is why they tell you this. This is why they built the wall of China, because of the Mongols. These were the Mongols, but they were way more crazy than they said. Everybody was terrified of these guys going into their town. So China was like, we're going to build this giant wall to protect this side of the world that they haven't hit yet. And they did do that. Now, this is, I'll link this for you guys. This is one thing by John Speed. Okay, and you see how prestigious that guy is. Now, let's see. I'll just close that. Okay, so here is another thing on Tartaria. It's in Latin, which I've taken the time. Sorry for that smack. I've taken the time to type this out and translate it as best as I could. Now again, this is 1642. A lot of these publications about Tartaria is 1640, 1650. It's that time zone. So it seems something strange happened. I don't know why. Everyone was becoming realizing of this and talking about it. So let's see. I actually have it right here. Now this one is not as interesting, but it explains that another different person was speaking about Tartaria. They spoke about them fairly similarly, but you also have to remember there's different tribes. There's different tribes. Now, I don't really want to read all of this because it's not that interesting. You could pause it and read it, but I'll just kind of go like this. Let's see. The Glacial Sea, the first emperor of the Tartar race, Paul Blue Kolchichin. Mainly just talking about what they kind of know, where they think they come from, and a lot about the religion. The nation itself is ferocious, terrible, bloody, intemperate in manners, and the most barbarous of all barbarians. So it's just this was the general idea of these people. This is what the world was knowing, and they were terrified of these people getting into their country, an uncultivated country, desolate. Yeah, I don't know why. Whatever. They have a common religion or law with the Turks or other Muslims, which smacks of Judaism and other kinds of Nestorian heresy. They profess one true God. They believe Christ, the holy prophet and last judge, was born a pure virgin but didn't suffer. Just a lot of stuff about their religion. And a lot of it wasn't insanely just oh my gosh, but it was okay, another person speaking about Tartarians and their existence. So what were they referring to of the Tartars, if that wasn't a thing? So it's there you go, another 1640 thing. Here we have a war that, from what I at least could record, lasted over around almost 100 years, I think. I'll recheck that right now as we go through it. But it was over a star fort between Tartary, and you could tell they look like Turks. They look Turkish. So it was between I believe France somewhere in Europe, and it was between them and, we'll see here, but it was Nové Zámky. So let's see, this one was in 1663, and they have these images. This one's 1699. They're still fighting. So 1660, that's already 1663. You could do the math, but 30, 40 years over a star fort. And you could see right here, as the years go by, the images inside change, and it looks like the people on the outside change. It's a constant back and forth war to win over this one area. So you could see inside is like the Turkish architecture. This is 1660, 1670. So you could tell that this is after that, 1699 or almost 1700. They're trying to take it over. Over here, this is 1601. Okay, so there you go. So it did last for like 100 years, 1601. So it lasted the 1600s, the 1700s, as far as I can tell. Now, why? Why? Like, what the heck? And it's all just stuff that stacks up. And you could tell the insides. Look at that. That doesn't look anything like this. It's completely different architecture. So, I mean, very, very mind-boggling stuff. And right here, it's 1863, another one. Very interesting stuff. Okay, so then we got over here, my last really solid piece of evidence is by Giovanni Botero. He was an Italian thinker, priest, poet, and diplomat. Author of the Della Ragione di Stato in 10 chapters, printed in Venice, 1589. Addressing, so he's a priest. Okay. So we'll just read what he has to say. Oh my god. Now, my main point here is, I think I was pretty much done after I showed you guys John Speed stuff. To me, that just tops the cake. But you could clearly also just find an insane amount of information on this. It's undeniable. And I'm not even a historian. It's undeniable. So if you're a historian telling me that this doesn't exist, I lose all credibility for you. Because it takes a couple little bit of searching through some libraries that are accessible and reading some old books, converting some stuff with the tools that we have. Come on. This book has 81 references to the word Tartar. Just talking about Scythia and Tartaria. So every single other paper that I've read has referred to them as Scythians or Tartarians or Mongols, and in the same generalization of area of being like in Asia near freaking all the same stuff. So it's a consistent evidence by different sources speaking of the same thing. There is no debate. There are maps. There are books. There is pictures. I have pictures. Look, I have pictures. I don't even. Is mind-boggling, man. I don't understand. So I'm just putting this. I'm putting this out there. Because I can't take it. So here everyone goes. I'll link these books, download them. I don't know, but burnt by the Tartars. Robberies of the Tartars. For the nature of these Rufus's Tartars is to make spoil of all men and to captuate their bodies, selling them to the Turks and other nations, by reason whereof many fair remount, they're literally just making slaves of people. Go to your nation, take your town, kill your people. The Prince of Tartar with 80,000 men. So there's a Prince of Tartars with the 80,000 soldiers. There was 10 tribes of these guys. 10 tribes with their own giant hordes going around nations. That is how they did this. They didn't have a specific nation. They didn't just sit in a place and send hits to another place. They were constantly moving, and they just wiped out everything they walked over. Now, I will end with this. Why are these such a secret? Why is there such a conspiracy around this? What is it? Well, you ask yourself this: what happened to them? If there was that many of them, they were that terrifying, they owned that much of the world. Let's just see like their maps again while this was undeniable. Okay, so let's just get that straight. Great Tartaria. This is like basically most of Asia. Okay, like everywhere above the Great Wall of China almost. You gotta wonder what happened. They took over so much. And they just disappeared? No, they didn't just disappear. Okay, my theory is there had to be some great event that wiped them out, which would explain for a lot of stuff. It would explain a lot of stuff that we question. Who was behind this great event? That's the question. These guys traveled in hordes. Okay, they were like, it's like having an AoE effect in a game. It's perfect. You're in a group. I got a meteor spell. Boom, you're gone. So easy to take you all out. That's the only way. If they were all gathered together like they do, majority wise, about to attack somebody, I think that a major type of event was strictly focused on these people because of how much of a danger they were. They were so close to completely taking over the world. Like, that type of power that they had, they literally almost took over half of the globe. And then if they would have just spread across the sea, it would have been game over. So that's what I leave you with is, where are they and where did they go?